Hi there, and welcome to Oaklandside 510. I'm Tasneem Raja, Editor-in-Chief of the Oaklandside, Oakland's independent newsroom. In today's episode, Oakland faces a potentially massive legal judgment over its efforts to block a coal terminal in West Oakland. The state found that Oakland Unified School District discriminated against Jewish students. A popular Lake Merritt hangout spot is getting new parking restrictions after gun violence. Then, the old Lake Merritt Lodge is reopening as a shelter for survivors of domestic violence and trafficking. You're going to hear about what it's been like for one Palestinian-American woman living in Oakland during the war in Gaza. And I'm going to explain to you what the Oakland Police Commission actually does and why it matters. You might have been hearing about this thing in the news. Let's break it down. Finally, this is really cool. Oaklandside is accepting applications from Oakland high school students for a new reporting fellowship with our newsroom. Our community journalism director, Jacob Simas, is going to tell you all about it and how teens can apply before the November 30th deadline. All right, let's get into it. Okay, I'm sorry to start us off with some bad financial news. Oakland faces a potentially massive legal blow. So here's what's happening. A federal bankruptcy judge in Kentucky has ruled that our city, quote, tortiously interfered with plans to build a coal export terminal at Oakland's old Army base. So what does that mean? Okay, so this is all the result of a lawsuit that was filed by a company called Insight Terminal Solutions. Basically, it wanted to ship coal from Oakland's waterfront, but says our city improperly blocked them. A judge has found Oakland liable for preventing that company from securing financing, developing the terminal, and ultimately forcing it into bankruptcy. So what could Oakland owe? Insight Terminal Solutions is arguing that damages should be as high as nearly $700 million. Even our city's own expert admits that damages could be at least $200 million. Now, the city says it disagrees with this whole ruling and it plans to appeal. A city spokesperson told us that the decision is still subject to review by a federal district judge, and importantly, so far, no damages have actually been awarded. This is all just the latest legal defeat for Oakland in this ongoing saga with this coal terminal. Back in September, the city lost its final appeal to try and stop the development of the terminal in state court. So that means the developer can now move forward with extending its lease on city-owned land and try to restart this project. All right, we're going to move on to public safety news. So our reporter, Rosalind Romero, recently published a really helpful explainer about the Oakland Police Commission. What it is, what it does. Now, the commission is getting a lot of attention right now. I'll explain why in a second. But I want to start by just giving you the basics. So this commission is considered one of the nation's most powerful civilian police oversight bodies. It's made of 7 regular members and 2 alternates. They're all Oakland residents who serve as volunteers. This is what they can do. They can review and propose changes to OPD policies. They can approve or reject policy changes related to the use of force, profiling, and policing of protests. They recruit candidates for police chief, and they submit finalists to the mayor. And this is huge. They can fire the police chief on their own for cause. So we're talking about a very powerful body that is made up of civilian volunteers. Oakland voters overwhelmingly approved the creation of this commission back in 2016. It passed with over 83% of the vote. That happened after decades of residents demanding stronger police oversight, and especially after a scandal involving OPD officers who were sexually exploiting a teenage girl. Now, today, some people criticize the commission. They claim it's biased against the police and that it creates an atmosphere where officers are afraid to do their jobs. Outgoing Police Chief Floyd Mitchell has echoed that sentiment. He's talked about what he calls, quote, the weaponization of the disciplinary process. The commission also popped up in the news recently after the Oakland City Council refused to reappoint 2 of its leaders. That happened after activists who are critical of the commission sent a letter to the city council demanding that the whole commissioner appointment process start all the way over. But supporters say this kind of strong civilian oversight is exactly what Oakland needs, given OPD's troubled history. Rosalind's full explainer goes much deeper and answers a lot of common questions. We'll link to it and all of this reporting in the show notes. Okay, next, the California Department of Education has found that Oakland Unified, our school district, created a discriminatory environment for Jewish students in multiple incidents over the past few years. So state investigators looked at 3 cases. One involved OUSD distributing maps of the Middle East during Arab American Heritage Month that didn't include Israel, and that this happened multiple times in 2021, 2023, and 2024. Another case involved Fremont High School flying a Palestinian flag for a month in 2023, shortly after Israel's war on Gaza began. The state found that this could have been perceived as the school taking sides in the conflict. Then the third case was about an unsanctioned teach-in in late 2023, where a group of teachers centered Palestinian perspectives on the war in Gaza without including Jewish or Israeli viewpoints. In all 3 cases, OUSD investigated but missed statutory deadlines and never issued findings on whether discrimination had occurred. So ultimately, the state stepped in. Now, OUSD has to train staff on bias and discrimination, include oversight of Heritage Month materials, and teach educators how to present Middle East content. An Arab American organization, AROC, pushed back on the findings, saying the complainants conflated criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. Mohammed Sheikh from AROC told us, quote, "They're using accusations of anti-Semitism to squash any discussion of the experience of Palestinian American students," end quote. Okay, our third story. A popular Lake Merritt hangout spot is about to become a lot less accessible at night. Here's what's happening. So there's a cul-de-sac at the end of Lakeshore Avenue with these stunning views. On many nights, especially on the weekends, you're going to find people hanging out there, in their cars, talking, laughing, playing music. Sometimes they're hanging out well past midnight. So parking had already been restricted there between 2 and 6 a.m. since 2020. But last week, the city council passed a resolution that goes much further, making parking there illegal starting at 10 p.m. This change was pushed by District 2 Council member Charlene Wong, who said residents want relief from the noise and the violence. So over the past 5 years, the location has seen multiple shootings, deadly stabbings, robberies, and collisions. Just a few months ago, 2 people were shot there. In October, someone died after being shot at that cul-de-sac. Wong told us she consulted with residents and property owners on Lakeshore Avenue, city staff, and the area's police captain. But she confirmed that she didn't speak to people who actually hang out at the cul-de-sac before introducing the resolution. So after the Oakland side asked her about it, she did talk to about 20 people there this past Saturday. When our reporter, Jose Fermoso, visited the cul-de-sac on a recent Thursday night after 11 p.m., parking was nearly full. People were hanging out, smoking, sleeping in their cars, listening to music, and most of them were not into this early parking ban. One person told Jose the city is going to have to maintain a consistent police presence to actually enforce this restriction. Okay, here's some more news about Lake Merritt. The old Lake Merritt Lodge on Harrison Street is reopening as a shelter for survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking. So the nonprofit Restorative Pathways bought this historic yellow building and plans to house about 120 people at a time. It's going to be called Solara House. The shelter will have separate floors for parents with children, single adults, and youth. It'll include a trauma recovery center with psychiatrists, nurses, and therapists, plus addiction treatment services. Now, you may or may not know this, but this building has had quite a journey. It was built 100 years ago as a YWCA boarding house for young women. Then it became a residential hotel, then a dorm for a business school, and most recently, it was a shelter run by Housing Consortium of the East Bay. Finally, I want to share a deeply intimate story that our deputy editor, Esther Kaplan, reported and published recently. Esther sat down with Loujain Al-Salah, an Oakland resident who has family in Gaza, to talk about what it's been like as a Palestinian American to witness the 2-year war from here. Loujain works for an environmental justice organization in Richmond, and she's been a member of the Arab Resource and Organizing Center, or AROC, for 8 years. She's lost 2 cousins in the war. Her cousin Rushdie Al-Sarraj was a journalist. He was killed in October 2023, just 15 days into the war, in what Loujain believes was a targeted airstrike while he was home eating breakfast with his wife and infant daughter. Then, in March of this year, Rushdie's brother Mahmoud, also a journalist, was killed while covering aid relief efforts. He was in a van with aid volunteers and other journalists when it was targeted by drone strikes. Everyone in the vehicle was killed. Loujain learned about both of these deaths through her family's WhatsApp group. She talked with Esther about the grief of not knowing her own family, of never having been able to visit Gaza or meet many of her relatives there, about the guilt of knowing that her tax dollars helped fund the weapons that may have killed her cousins, about the overwhelming feeling of waking up every day to news of massacres while her life continues as usual here. She also talked with Esther about what is giving her hope. Massive protests and organizing that she has seen in Oakland and the Bay Area. She talked about ceasefire resolutions and support for Palestinians that she sees everywhere in Oakland. Keffiyehs, Free Palestine signs and windows, and flags at local businesses. She quoted a poem by Palestinian-American poet Lisa Suhair Majaj that includes the line, "We wake Palestinian, breathe Palestinian, sleep and dream Palestine." It's a powerful, heartbreaking conversation. I really encourage you to read it in full at oaklandside.org. All right, now let's turn to something really exciting that's happening at the Oakland side. So we are launching a new reporting fellowship, and it is specifically for Oakland public high school students. To tell us more about it, I am joined by Jacob Seamus, Cityside's Director of Community Journalism.
Thanks for having me, Tasneem.
Okay, so Jacob, tell us about this fellowship. What exactly are we doing here?
Yeah, so we're going to be paying 12 OUSD high school students to collaborate directly with our newsroom and help shape our education coverage. Each student fellow is going to be paired up with an Oakland Side journalist, and together they're going to identify, research, and report on one concrete idea that could make Oakland Public Schools better. Fellows will share their lived experiences and insights as subject matter experts, because who's better, right?
Right.
And become part of the editorial process with us on stories from pitch to publication.
I just love this project. So tell people why now. Why did we decide to launch this fellowship?
Yeah, well, I mean, starting with there are more than 34,000 students attending K through 12 schools in Oakland Unified, even more than that when we count public charter schools. Yeah. And for kids and their families, these schools are critical. They're where young people develop friendships, learn critical thinking skills, and form an understanding of their place in society, right? So the thing is, Oakland's public schools, super important, but they also face real hardships.
Yeah.
OUSD only regained control of its finances last spring after 22 years under state oversight. And the academic challenges are also really steep. In 2024, only a third of OUSD students met or exceeded state standards for English proficiency, and only a quarter did so for math. And both of those numbers are well below California averages. And so we're enlisting the help of these local students to deepen our own knowledge and our coverage by defining what they see as the key challenges facing their schools and identifying possibilities for change as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so can you tell us what students are actually going to do as part of this fellowship? Like, what will the work look like?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty amazing experience for them. They're going to get to work directly with Oakland Side journalists to identify stories and do the research and report. And that could look like taking photos on their campus or surveying their peers. But for all of these students, they're going to be a part of the editorial process from beginning to end, from pitching stories all the way through to publication. And at the very end of the fellowship, the body of work we create with them will be shared at a community event where we'll gather district officials, school site leaders, teachers, students, families, and other stakeholders for a discussion about our solutions-focused schools reporting, sparked by and grounded in the experience of these OUSD high school students themselves.
Yes. Okay. So Beyond that, what do the students get out of all this?
Yeah, they get a lot. So fellows who complete the program are going to receive a $1,500 stipend.
Yes.
But maybe more importantly, they're going to gain real work experience to support their higher education and career goals. And they're going to get an inside look at a real newsroom and learn what journalism is all about.
Okay, Jacob, if someone listening is a high school student, knows a high school student in Oakland Unified, and this sounds interesting, how should they apply?
Yeah, so applications are open now through November 30th, and you can find the application on our website at oaklandside.org, but we'll also link to it in the show notes.
Yep.
And if folks have questions that aren't answered in the application itself, they can always email me directly at jacob@citysidejournalism.org.
Excellent. Jacob, thank you so much for telling us about this.
Yeah, thank you, Tasneem. And to all the students out there, I can't wait to read your applications.
All right, awesome. All right, that is this week's episode of Oaklandside 510. Thank you to Jacob Seamus, Cityside's Director of Community Journalism, and thank you to the Stewart Foundation for making this program possible. We appreciate your generous support. You can find all of the stories we talked about today at oaklandside.org. Do sign up for our daily newsletter if you want to get this reporting delivered straight to your inbox. Now, if you haven't already, I've said it before, I'll say it again, subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. Share it with your Oakland friends and neighbors. The more people listening, the more we're going to keep this show going. This episode was produced by Kiana Mogadam, edited by Darwin Bongram, and hosted by me, Oaklandside Editor-in-Chief Tasneem Raja. On behalf of this entire newsroom, thank you for showing up for Oakland. We'll see you next week.